careful. And this is the friend of your father. And
Well, you're my father.
I mean, your grandfather, King.
Oh, okay.
And there was a place now that they own, was owned by the doctor who was...
Well, he loved his milk bars.
Hmm?
My grandfather loved his milk bars.
Yeah, well, yeah, but your grandfather, and this was the Dr. Grimm, who had the, in Devon Manor. It's a nursing home.
Right, I know Devon Manor very well.
And he was the one that had Devon Manor, but he also was the head of the Board of Health for Lower Merion.
Oh.
So they made Scott Powell Dairies to make them build a plant in order to sell their milk, because they'd only allow Abbott to come in and sell milk. So they had to build a plant right there on Cricket Avenue in Ardmore in order to be able to deliver milk in Lower Merion Township, or ice cream or anything else. It was kind of funny.
Very political.
Yeah, oh, it was very political.
Very political.
But that was the friend of your father.
Mm-hmm. Alexander Spencer King.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that place is still there. It's still at Devon Manor. That's where my grandmother Fox and grandfather Fox both died there. And that was one of the first kind of retirement centers.
Mm-hmm.
The family, the
Well, you always said that was going to be your last address.
Hmm?
You always said that was going to be your last address.
Oh, no. West Laurel Hills, my next.
Well, I mean, before that. Before West Laurel.
Well,
my next move is to Devon Manor, you always used to say.
yeah. I don't.
That was when you were at 480.
Well, I changed.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going to be. But,
You have been, like, many addresses since then.
oh, I've had many addresses.
I mean, I have to actually get a whole new address book now, just because of all your address changes.
Well, I didn't expect to move so much as I do.
Well, you have to stop.
We had to go back to Naples and go back.
We got to go back to history.
Yeah, the history. So anyway,
Before Sherry.
if you go back into the family, you will find that my great-grandfather, he married a Vanderveer, and that was the daughter of Captain Vanderveer, who was the captain of the U.S. Constitution during the Civil War. And that's where the letters were written from him or the White House when he was a guest at the President Lincoln at the time of the Civil War, when the Constitution was up the Potomac River and in the Washington Naval Yard. I never knew they had a naval yard there, but I guess they did. And that was across into the area of Alexander. But that was that family. And the other part of the family there was the Bendiers. That was another Vanderveer that married the Bendier family. That was my father's friend, and he was also the neighbor. Eddie Bendier lived across the ravine and off of Maple Avenue in Haddonfield, and he worked in the office at Union Securities, and then in the future he was a nice guy. We called him the Colonel because he was a colonel.
I remember him, the Colonel. Now that you say the Colonel, I remember him. Okay.
In the Air Force, and he fought the war in Alaska. And
Alaska.
in Alaska. Yeah, well, he was.
I didn't know there was a war in Alaska.
He was in charge of the bombing of Kiska and Attu. And the Japanese were occupying those two islands in Alaska.
Huh.
And then there was other members of the family, the Matterns, the Boyers. Dr. Boyer was a DO. He's the one that took out my tonsils circumcision and whatever. And I'll never forget him. He was a nice guy. And he had two daughters, Jane and Marianne. I don't know where they are. And then there was the Matterns, and he was at the Pennsylvania Railroad, and he had a boy by the name Sandy, they called him Paul, and a daughter by the name of Jane, and I don't know what happened to them. I know Sandy's dead, been dead for many years, and that was they were both sisters of my grandmother, who came from Mount Joy, and that was where she was. That's where they're buried. The family plot up there. My grandfather and my grandmother. So she was really a Pennsylvania Dutch girl. And,
I knew that had to come into play somewhere with everybody up in Lancaster.
I don't know how we met her. I never did know, but she was a very active woman, and she had one child, and that was my father, and then I was the only child, and she ended up living in the Chalfont as well. Then that's where she passed away. She had an apartment there at the embassy on Walnut Street, and then they moved her down to the shore, and she lived there just where my great-grandfather and his wife died. So they had an interesting career, and her sisters one lived in Havertown, and the other one lived in Lansdowne. So, as I say, I don't know what happened to the girls, and I've never had any contact with them since I was married to your mother. You really wonder.
Oh, sure.
Huh?
Sure.
Yeah, I wish I did. I wish I had kept up their name, things like that. But if they all went off, had kids. Oh, I did bump into Marianne, married fellow who used to come in and examine World Life for the Pennsylvania Insurance Department.
Oh, yeah? That's funny.
So they married. I had a little contact with them, but I never saw her.
Huh.
You lose touch with your relatives.
Well, yeah,
and they
because
get all over the place. Like, you don't know where you're.
It's not like it used to be, before, cars and planes and trains and, well, not trains necessarily, but families stayed closer together because, that was the unit. That's,
Well, most
families
of the
worked
kids,
together and.
They all end up going all over the country.